A little late tonight. Yes, I still have a part-time job, and I had to work there this evening. But man, the way this thing is growing, might not be working too much longer. Alright, YouTube. You do your thing and tell everybody I'm out here. Come on now. I'm doing my thing. You need to do your thing. So yeah, I'm a little late. 10 p.m. Part-time job. Like I said earlier, might not be for long because this channel is booming. I don't say it's one of the fastest sports YouTube channels for nothing. It really is right now. Now yesterday I came on and I said we had a 50 sub day, which broke a record. Well, today we're almost at an 80 sub day. So no matter how it ends, today is a record-breaking day. Jacob, happy birthday, bud. Thanks for stopping by on your birthday. I hope you had a good one. What's going on, Joey? Oh, this is going to be disappointing, and I apologize. We're not doing call-ins tonight because of what happened last night. But we have a plan. I promise. We have a plan. So what we're going to do, and Joey, you put out my email. What we're going to do is, from now on, for my live shows, and I'll announce it on my other videos and all that stuff, send me an email saying, this is who I am, and this is where I'm from, and this is my number. That way I'll be able to connect, your number to your name. Because yesterday, I mean, trolls don't bother me, but dadgum, they tried to mess up the show. Very, very much so. A few of them got a couple of shots in, but, it's all good. Not worried about it. But the main thing is we don't want the channel getting a strike or getting taken down or anything like that. So I'm trying to keep it to where we can keep the trolling to a minimum. So, yeah. James Thompson, yes, West Virginia to the ACC. I had a very reliable source earlier tell me that. And the safe time frame that I put out was 2 weeks, but now I'm hearing that it could come out within 48 hours. But I can't really confirm that. So, yeah. Oh, Jacob, he's 20 now. You're a man. You're a man. Congratulations. But you can't drink yet. Sorry. One more year. Although, if you were like me, you probably are, having parties and drinking and, it happens. It's part of growing up. But, yeah, welcome to real life. You are officially not a teenager anymore. You are in your 20s. Real life. Coming at you. Trust me. A whole lot different. But I wish you nothing the best. You seem like a good person. I think you'll do well. Congratulations on getting this far. I think you'll go farther. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Yeah, today was a big day. The past 3 days have been a big day. We all know Oklahoma and Texas, they're going off to the Big 12. Big 12. They're leaving the Big 12 and going off to the SEC. And then today, a very reliable source tells me that West Virginia is indeed going to the ACC. And now I'm hearing that Kansas is going to the Big 10. Now, if Kansas goes to the Big 10, I think they'll grab Iowa State as well. And a lot of people are asking, well, why not Kansas State? Well, they don't fit the criteria that the Big 10 has. You have to be an AAU accredited school, and there's a bunch of other stuff that they don't quite hit the mark on. So it's my belief that it'll be Kansas and Iowa State that goes to the Big 10. So what you have left is Oklahoma State, you have Baylor, you have TCU, you have Texas Tech, and Kansas State. Because Oklahoma and Texas, they're going off to the SEC. We already know that. West Virginia is going to the ACC. Get ready for that to break, for the news to break on that soon. And then Kansas and Iowa State will most likely be going to the Big 10. Now, the Pac-12, that's a very strange scenario because they have stipulations as well. Number one, they don't want you to be a religious school. So that probably knocks off TCU. But would they overlook that? They might. The other thing is you also have to be a Tier 1 research school. I'm not sure if TCU is that or not. I'd have to look it up. I'm pretty sure Texas Tech is. Baylor might be, but I'm not sure about TCU. I know Oklahoma State is not. So the two teams that I'm the most worried about would be Kansas State and Oklahoma State. But what they could do is they could try to join the SEC as well. So the SEC can bring on Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State. They would definitely have to rearrange the conference. And from what I'm hearing, they're wanting to go to a pod system. As is, they're going to a 16 team. Now, they'd have to switch this up for an 18 team. I don't know how they would do it. But for a 16 team conference, 4 pods, 4 teams per pod. And the rules are whoever you're in the pod with, your 3 other competitors, you have to play them at least once every year. But then after that, I don't know, the stipulations, like if you have to play this other pod once or every other year or a home and home. I don't know how all that works. All I know is that you have to play within your pod. You have to play those 3 teams at least once. So Joey says Baylor and TCU are not a Tier 1 research facility. So I'd be worried about them too. In fact, maybe it would be TCU and Baylor that goes over to the SEC, because that would make a little bit more sense, especially since Texas is already going to the SEC. Because here's the thing. The big thing that came out of this joining the SEC was Texas A&M wanted to be the only school out of the state of Texas in the SEC. And they actually hid this from Texas A&M, and they're not happy about it. Texas, Oklahoma, and the SEC were in talks for at least 6 months. And Texas A&M, they did not tell Texas A&M. They knew they were going to throw a fit. So now that barrier is broken, and Texas A&M will no longer be the only team from Texas in the SEC, they could very well bring Baylor and TCU. That would make more sense than Kansas State and Oklahoma State. Or you could do a combination of maybe Oklahoma State and TCU, or Oklahoma State and Baylor. So really there's 4 teams I'm worried about. TCU, Baylor, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State. Those are the 4 teams that are in trouble right now. West Virginia will be going to the ACC. 904 Hurricane question of the night. Who do you think joins West Virginia in the ACC? I did hear Cincinnati being spoken about by the ACC. Now, the thing is, here's the thing, guys. We all know Notre Dame will get the invite over everybody. So, a lot of this is in the hands of Notre Dame. So, if it's West Virginia and somebody else, they're definitely going to offer Notre Dame. If Notre Dame says yes, that's the end of the story. It'll be West Virginia and Notre Dame. But if Notre Dame says no, I would say Cincinnati. It's either going to be West Virginia and Notre Dame or West Virginia and Cincinnati. And it's all going to depend on if Notre Dame says yes or not. Because Notre Dame will get the invite over Cincinnati, UCF, whoever it may be. Now, here's another interesting thing, though. Okay? So, the Big 12 will dissolve. We all know that. And Texas, Oklahoma going to the SEC. West Virginia going to the ACC. And most likely, Kansas and Iowa State going to the Big 10, right? And we talked about those other teams. Well, the AAC could actually pick up some, if not all of those teams. And they would have a legitimate argument to grab a Power 5 label. And if that happens, that means Cincinnati might be off the table. If the AAC turns into a Power 5, Cincinnati wouldn't have to go to the ACC unless, you make more money, which I'm sure they do. So they might do it for the money. So there is a crap ton of things at play right now. I mean, the options are endless. And the fact of the matter is, we are in a point in time when college football is going to look completely different than what we're used to. Now, what exactly is going to look like? That's the million-dollar question. Number one, the Big 12 is done. Okay, they're done, gone. My question is, after Oklahoma, Texas, West Virginia, Kansas, and Iowa State, after those 5 are done, right? Does the other Power 5s grab the other 5, or can the AAC grab a chunk of them and try to get that label of a Power 5 team? I think it's a really good possibility that they could, because they already have SMU in Texas. So, if they were to grab Baylor, TCU, and Texas Tech, that would extend that footprint, and then that might entice Oklahoma State, which might entice Kansas State. And then all of a sudden you have the AAC, one of the biggest conferences with a lot of big names. Because let's face it right now, Cincinnati is the best group of 5 team, and I think they belong in a Power 5 conference. I do. And I think that happened in 2019, because at one point it was UCF who was the best group of 5. But whenever Scott Frost left, Josh Heupel took over, and this is not being talked about enough, guys. UCF has been slowly, not off a cliff, no, trickling downward. So that's why I never liked the hire that Tennessee had. They hired Josh Heupel, and I'm like, look at UCF. When Scott Frost was over there, they were going undefeated, winning 1, maybe 2, losing maybe 1 or 2 games, and now they're lucky if they finish 3rd or 4th place. So I don't understand why they went after him. I know it was about connections and all that stuff, but Josh Heupel is not going to get Tennessee out of their ditch. I definitely rabbit trailed on that. I apologize, but everything connects sometimes. Let's get back to what's going on now. So the AAC, they could grab Baylor, TCU, and Texas Tech, and they'd have a big, and I mean big, footprint in the state of Texas. And then that could entice Oklahoma State and Kansas State. Because I really don't think that any of those teams, a lot of people are talking that they could go to the Pac-12. They can't, because they're not in Tier 1 research, except for Texas Tech. I think they can. Texas Tech, I believe, is a Tier 1 research school. So, I think, they are. So I think if anybody is going to go to the Pac-12, it would be Texas Tech. Now, the interesting thing is the Pac-12, the last time all this happened, I believe it was 10 years ago, the Pac-12 was 30 minutes away from grabbing Texas and Oklahoma. That's how close they came to Texas and Oklahoma signing that deal. I mean, it came down to the last minute. Seriously. So that really hurt them. Now they're going over to the SEC. Pac-12's got to be like, man, you should have done something. Made the deal sweeter, made it more cozy, whatever you want to call it, for Texas, Oklahoma. I don't know, because that one's going to sting. Oklahoma and Texas could have really boosted the value of the Pac-12 massively, and it would have extended their footprint. So that was a big swing and a miss for the Pac-12, big time. And if you look at it, ever since then, the Pac-12 as a whole, not very good. I mean, they've only made the playoffs twice, and that was like 6 years ago. It's been a while. So they were one of the conferences that needed this playoff expansion the most, because they're like, we haven't been there in forever. We need a bigger field, so there's a bigger chance for us to get in there, because that's the only way they're going to get in there. Now their only option, I think, would be, I'm not sure if Boise State is a Tier 1 research. I'd have to look into that. But as far as grabbing up a new member, Texas Tech, maybe Boise State, they're not going to take BYU. BYU probably wouldn't go anyways. So the Pac-12 is kind of just stuck in the mud right now. That's why they're irrelevant. They're bad at making decisions. I mean, I'm really hoping that this new commissioner is good at making decisions, because the last one was bad. He was terrible. And the revenue stream, if you Google it and you look at the charts, you can see it's going down. They are not worth as much as they used to be. USC is not, the brand USC is not as strong as it used to be. Oregon might be close to what it used to be because, everybody knows Oregon and their flashy uniforms and, they're affiliated with Nike, all that stuff. That helps them. But as far as on the field stuff, no, not. They're recruiting at a high level, but look at last year. Consistency not there. And that's the problem with the Pac-12. The consistency is not there. I did a video a while back, and I didn't even think about it until I sat down and looked at the statistics. Really, it's actually hurt the Pac-12 that they haven't had a dominant team. Because think about it. The SEC, the dominant team, Alabama. Sure, you have LSU that popped out, 2019 out of nowhere, won it. Auburn's done it. Georgia might do it this year. But really, there's one dominant team, and that's Alabama. In the SEC, to get to the playoffs, you have to go through Alabama. All right, let's jump over to the ACC. Oh, easy. Clemson. I mean, Miami, North Carolina, they're on their way. But the road to the playoffs in the ACC goes through Clemson. Let's jump over to the Big Ten. It's been Ohio State. I think Wisconsin has a chance to make the playoffs this year. But you see what I'm saying? Every conference except for, and even the Big 12. I forgot about the Big 12. Oklahoma. The path to the playoffs has gone through Oklahoma. They're winless in the playoffs, but, they're the team to beat. That's the difference. The Pac-12 hasn't had that dominant team, and unfortunately, you need a dominant team to get into the playoffs. I can't sugarcoat that. It is what it is. You need a dominant team. And a lot of Pac-12 fans are like, well, it's more competitive over here. I agree with that. That's a problem, though. You're almost too competitive because everybody keeps knocking each other off, and nobody ever gets to the playoffs. I wonder if they ever discussed taking one for the team, where, maybe somebody's undefeated going towards the end of the year, and they're like, let's say it's USC, right? And they're going up against an Arizona State. They're like, hey, Sun Devils, we know you're really good, and we know you want to get to the Pac-12 championship, and if you beat USC, you'll get there. But if you beat USC, the Pac-12 doesn't get to the playoffs. Will you take one for the team? I don't know. Could happen. Doubt it, but it could happen at this point. 5-year drought. I could definitely see those conversations going on. That's how I think the Pac-12 has kind of shifted into desperate mode. It's been a long 5 years for the Pac-12. And even when they made the playoffs, Pac-12's gotten dominated. So they need something. And sorry, Pac-12 fans, Texas Tech is not the answer. If you're able to get Boise State, that's not going to be the answer. You need USC and Oregon, maybe Washington to step up and dominate from time to time. I'm not saying expect the Pac-12 to get to the playoffs every year, but 5 years? That's bad. That's real bad. You got to do better. And now, and that's what ties in what's going on now. With Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC, that's bad news for the Pac-12. Really bad news. And there's no big names that they can go out and go after. So it might be another long 5 to 10 years for the Pac-12. I don't know. Unless USC and Oregon can do something. Oregon's recruiting at a high level. USC's recruiting at a high level, but they're not consistent. So I don't know. All right, let me look through the comments real quick. Brian Korth. Big Ten is a dumb name for a conference. Sounds like a pack of mini donuts. I agree. Same for the Big 12, though. Let's see. Sorgy Stories. That won't work because Herm Edwards says you play to win the game. Good point. And that thing that happened last year where they said he recruited through the COVID dead period. So he's serious about playing to win the game because he's going to recruit in a COVID dead period, and they're treating it like it's the worst thing ever. They're treating it worse than recruiting through a regular dead period. They're almost blaming dead bodies on Herm Edwards. I'm serious. That's how extreme the NCAA is acting about this. They're basically blaming anybody that contracted COVID within a 300-mile radius whenever he was recruiting in that dead period on him. Yeah, I'm not even playing about that. All right. Neo says Oregon, USC are close. I agree, but close only counts in horseshoes and grenades. In the playoffs, it don't count. You got to get there. You can't come close. You have to be there. That actually, you know what? That comment actually explains it all. You're exactly right. They're close, but close won't cut it. Jacob says, fire JF. What other teams would the SEC add to get to 20? Well, let's see. So, Oklahoma and Texas, that makes 16. I mean, in theory, they could add West Virginia. That's 17. They could, and we're talking about decent names, too, not just random names, okay? So, West Virginia, that would be 17, but they're going to the ACC. But we're just saying in theory, okay? West Virginia, that's 17. Oklahoma State, that's a decent name. That's 18. Kansas State would be up for the pickings. That's 19. And then you'd have your choice of, Iowa State, Kansas. I would go with Iowa State over Kansas, even though their basketball program is not good right now. And then, of course, TCU, Baylor, and Texas Tech. So, to be honest with you, the SEC could choose anybody. I mean, that's kind of a relative question. It's not like they're limited to anything. They could literally go out and get anybody, and they just proved it. They're getting Oklahoma and Texas. So, yeah, I don't think in the near future, I don't think the SEC is going to go beyond 16. Maybe, in the next 4 years, but I think in this particular cycle, Texas and Oklahoma were their targets, and they got them, of course. So I don't think they're going to add any more onto that. The big question is who the ACC is going to add with West Virginia, because there's two options here as far as how many. They can go with West Virginia and one other team, or they could go with West Virginia and 3 other teams. And in that scenario, that actually does put UCF in play, because they could get West Virginia, and if Notre Dame accepted, they would get in, of course, and then Cincinnati and UCF. So then the AAC would be getting picked apart. So I hope that, if your team is in the AAC and they're not named Cincinnati or UCF, I hope you're not too confident right now, because the AAC is also at risk of getting picked apart right now. Pretty much everybody is at risk. If you're not the Pac-12, if you're not the Big Ten, if you're not the SEC, and if you're not the ACC, you are at risk of getting picked apart. So even though the focus is on the Big 12 right now, don't get too comfortable. I'm telling you right now, don't get too comfortable. Even the Mountain West. Who knows? Maybe the Pac-12 gets desperate and they lower some of their standards and they go after, say, a Boise State or a San Jose State or a San Diego State. It could happen. I mean, desperate times call for desperate measures. I could totally see that happening. So, don't relax. Now, if you're the fans of the teams that get picked, hope it happens. But I'm talking like fans of maybe a Memphis, because I don't see anybody picking up Memphis. Tulsa, maybe. Fans of teams like that, don't be all comfortable right now. Don't breathe your sigh of relief until all this is over, because the AAC is definitely 100% at risk of getting picked apart. But the Big 12, as we know it, is done. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The Big 12's done. Is there a possibility that maybe those remaining 5 teams, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Texas Tech, TCU, and Baylor, can stick together and maybe go after other teams? It's possible, but it's unlikely. And they definitely wouldn't be able to get any big names. I mean, they could go after a Boise State, a BYU. Those would be decent names. Maybe a Tulsa, maybe a Memphis, stuff like that. So they could have decent names. But as far as being, the Big 12 as we know it, it's done. And I don't see that scenario happen. I don't see the Big 12 staying intact. I don't see the Big 12 adding. I don't see the Big 12 existing anymore. I think it's done. Even on my Facebook groups, this was crazy. And I didn't realize this until I really thought about it. Facebook groups. I'm a West Virginia fan. We're in the Big 12, right? Well, I'm a member of several Big 12 Facebook groups. And I've noticed today, ever since Oklahoma and Texas, let the cat out of the bag and announced, that they talked to the SEC and they're probably going to the SEC, the number of people in the groups dropped dramatically. And it didn't really click until I really thought about it. Oh, wait a minute. Fans of Oklahoma and fans of Texas aren't going to be in Big 12 groups anymore. They're going to go over to SEC groups. So even it's affecting everything. And so that was something that I didn't think about. And so it's going to be a big time transition period. It's a new era. That's the best way I can explain it. College football as we know it is done. We have the NIL, and players are already getting deals for the being able to make money off their name, image, and likeness. We have the playoff expansion, and then, of course, this new wave of conference realignment. Don't kid yourself. It's all connected. This wasn't three random things that just so happened to occur around the same time. No, all of this is connected. Things happen behind closed doors that we have no idea it was going on. Oklahoma, Texas, talking to the SEC for 6 months. Nobody knew. The SEC didn't even want to tell Texas A&M, so they left them in the dark. So the Aggies are mad. They wanted to be the only team in Texas in the SEC. They're pissed off. So a lot of things behind closed doors that we don't realize until it comes out. And these are the big things that was going on behind closed doors. But here's the thing. I try to think rationally. I try to think ahead of time. If you go back on my channel, the night of the national championship, the first thing that I talked about was playoff expansion to 12 teams. Now, I didn't think everything would come together all at once, but it just made too much sense for them to expand to 12. You're including more, you're going to make more money, and by having those bye weeks, you're still keeping those incentives. Because that was the big problem with the playoff expansion was, you get towards the end of the season and a team knows that they're already going to be in, they're going to be tempted to rest their players, take a game off, not take it as seriously. Conference championships are only hindrances. They don't help really. Expanding the playoffs actually makes conference championships more important because you're wanting to get those higher seeds to get the bye week and the home playoff game. So it's all connected. We just don't realize it until it starts hitting us from different directions. You just got to take a step back and look at everything like, okay, I see what's going on here. And it really does make sense whenever you think about it. Everything, people were talking, we just didn't know it. And it pops up just a little bit at a time. Just a little bit to get us interested in it. And we didn't realize that it was part of the big picture all along. It was part of the big picture all along. But they only reveal it in bits and pieces so it doesn't look that way. Oh, they were thinking about playoff expansion. I didn't realize that. Oh, they're passing the NIL. I didn't think about that. Oh, conference expansion. Man, I was not thinking about that. Yeah, they were this whole time. It's just they only want you to know what they want you to know. It's the big picture, and it was all coming together. We just didn't know it. But if you really think about it, common sense made sense. It's just you wanted to deny it. That's the best way I can put it. Like, yes, it makes sense, but nah, that'll never happen. We'll never expand the playoffs to 12 teams. That'll never happen. They're not going to start allowing players to make money off their, name, image, and likeness. Conference realignment, that's the thing in the past. That'll never happen again. You get lulled into a false sense of security, and then boom, it all hits all at the same time. So sometimes you just have to prepare yourself for things that you don't think will happen, but it would make sense if it did happen. Because all this makes sense if you put it all together. Name, image, likeness, players being able to get paid for that, playoff expansion, and conference realignment. It all makes sense together. Now, what do I think is going to happen? That's a good question that I just asked myself. So after Oklahoma and Texas go to the SEC, right? And then you have West Virginia going to the ACC. And I do think that Kansas and Iowa State go to the Big Ten. That's going to happen. I think there's a possibility that Oklahoma State and Kansas State will go to the Mountain West. Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. I think Kansas State and Oklahoma State will go to the Mountain West. I think Texas Tech will go to the Pac-12. And depending on if they can adjust that rule for the Tier 1, because I'm not quite sure about Boise State, they could go after Boise State. And they might relax that rule for the religious schools and go after BYU. That could happen. So I think that the names in play for the Pac-12 would be Boise State, BYU, and Texas Tech. So that would be the Pac-12. So we have TCU, Baylor, TCU and Baylor. That's it, because I have Kansas State and Oklahoma State going to the Mountain West. So TCU and Baylor, they would go to the AAC. That's what I think will happen as far as realistically. So you have TCU and Baylor going to the AAC. Then you have Kansas State and Oklahoma State going to the Mountain West. And then Texas Tech would go to the Pac-12. They would just need one more team to go with Texas Tech to even it out. That's why I threw, Boise State and BYU out there. They would need one more team to balance that out. I don't know who that one more team is, but that is the future that I see for the Big 12. So here we go. Big picture. Big 12. Oklahoma, I'm going to count it out on my fingers so you know that 10 teams, okay? Big 12, but 10 teams. Oklahoma, Texas, going to the SEC. West Virginia going to the ACC. Kansas and Iowa State going to the Big Ten. Texas going to the Pac-12. Kansas State and Oklahoma State going to the Mountain West. And then TCU and Baylor going to the ACC. That's how I see the total shakedown of the Big 12 going. Let me see what you guys are talking about real quick. Kind of got stuck way up there in the comments. Dadgum. Here we go. Totally. He says, Kansas football drops to FCS Idaho style. They're already there. Kansas, in my opinion, their football program, they're an FCS team playing in a Power 5. Like, think about that. Kansas, Big 12 was a Power 5. It won't be anymore. But Kansas, a trash football team in the Power 5, technically had a chance to win a national championship if they were good enough. Not good enough, but if they were good enough. Cincinnati in a group of 5, way better than Kansas. I mean, ridiculously better than Kansas. Not really have a shot of getting to the national championship just because they don't play high enough quality competition. Although this year they really stepped up and they scheduled road trips to Indiana and Notre Dame. Hey, listen to this right here. If Cincinnati goes undefeated and they do not get invited to the playoffs, that's just messed up. I will be completely upset about that. I thought they had a shot to get to the playoffs this year. If they go undefeated, and that would be a road trip against Indiana and a road trip against Notre Dame, and they don't get to the playoffs, that's a shame. That's a shame. That you talk about making a rant video. I am not a Cincinnati fan, but I would most definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, make a rant video about that, because that would be sheer nonsense. Sheer nonsense. PSU Nitwit says, and I like that screen name too, by the way. He says, what is the purpose of a power conference of ESPN if ESPN goes bankrupt? That's a good question, because I think it was ESPN that labeled the different conferences as far as the Power 5 and the Group of 5. So that could go away in and of itself, but I think in the back of the label itself by ESPN might go away, but the persona would still be there. So I don't know if that would make that much of a difference either way. PSU Nitwit says Big Ten will not take Kansas or Iowa State. Well, I'm hearing that I don't know about Iowa State, but the talks for Kansas in the Big Ten are red hot right now. Red hot. Jim says, hate that you are going to be upset. No Group of 5 team will ever make the 14 playoff. Yeah, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is that would be nonsense for this coming year, because Cincinnati would prove that they are a pretty good team, elite team. They would prove that they are an elite team if they go on the road and they beat Notre Dame and Indiana and go undefeated. That's an elite team. And who's supposed to make the playoffs? An elite team. But like you said, because they're in the Group of 5, it probably wouldn't happen. And you know what the biggest problem, the biggest thing that keeps these Group of 5 teams from getting to the playoffs? That stupid FPI. That stupid FPI. That's the thing that keeps them out. That's what made Cincinnati get knocked down in the standings when they didn't lose a game. That stupid FPI. So that's one thing that definitely needs to go away. It doesn't even make sense. And a lot of people are like, well, make up your mind. You whined whenever the BCS was here, and now you're whining about the playoffs. Well, there needs to be a combination of the two. You need to expand the playoffs, but still keep the metrics, because what we're seeing here is the human element. And humans are humans. They're going to make mistakes, and they're going to, be tempted to take this team over this team. A one-loss Wisconsin will get in over an undefeated Cincinnati who beat, we'll say, 3 top 10 teams every day, just because of that human element. Oh, Wisconsin's in the Big Ten. They're Big Ten champs. That's a Power 5. That's a Power 5 conference. Cincinnati's pretty good. They're not in a Power 5 conference. Yeah, it's got to be Wisconsin. Stuff like that. So you got to take the metrics from the BCS and the expansion of the playoffs and put them together, because the playoff committee is a bunch of bums. They have no idea no clue. It's stupid. Be honest, whenever you see the playoff rankings come out, whenever you see them, are you more like, yeah, that looks right, or are you more like, wow, I didn't see that coming? Which emotion comes out of you more when you see an updated week by week? I know it doesn't start till like week 5 or week 6, but whenever the playoffs get updated, the playoff rankings, they get updated every week, what emotion comes out more? Is it more like, hit it right on the head, I agree with the playoff committee? Or is it like, I guess I see why they did that, but I honestly didn't see that coming. To me, it's the latter. To me, whenever they update the playoffs from the week to week, I'm like, that sort of makes sense, but I really didn't see that coming. I thought this team would be here. I thought this team would be there. Stuff like that. Especially last year, whenever Cincinnati kept falling, I was like, why? Cincinnati didn't do anything to fall in the rankings. They didn't. They didn't lose. They didn't play bad. They didn't look bad. They didn't have a stupid scare against a really, really bad team. None of that happened. So there was no actual reason for them to fall. So for me, it's like the reaction that comes out of you more whenever you see the playoff get updated every week is, I guess that makes sense. I don't know. Instead of, oh man, they hit that right on the head. In fact, I don't hardly ever say they hit it right on the head because it just usually doesn't make sense. Totally says, imagine the Big 12 taking Louisiana, SMU, and Houston. So you're saying if the Big 12 stays intact with Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State, and they get SMU, LSU, and Houston. So that's still only 8 teams. So, and really the only name within those 3 that's any good is Louisiana. I mean, SMU was pretty good last year, but they're not going to be as good as they were this year. Houston was trash last year. I do think Houston will have a bounce back year this year, but nothing spectacular. I'm thinking get to a bowl, maybe 7-5 or 8-4 at best. So yeah, I really don't see that helping the Big 12. I mean, for the Big 12 to stay into existence, here's what they need to do. Number one, somehow keep those remaining 5 together. They got to keep Oklahoma State, Kansas State, TCU, Baylor, and Texas Tech together. So those 5 have to stay together. Number one. Number 2, got to take a shot at Cincinnati in the AAC. You got to take a shot at UCF. I know it doesn't make sense, but guess what? West Virginia was in the Big 12. Didn't make sense. You got to take a shot. Take a shot at Memphis. Take a shot at Louisiana in the Sun Belt. Take a shot at Coastal Carolina in the Sun Belt. I know, doesn't make sense. Does it matter? No, it doesn't. Take a shot at Liberty. You know, their brand is getting stronger. You could even try to reach out, well, for y'all it would be this way. West Coast, try to grab San Jose State. They were pretty good, right? Boise State, maybe. That would actually make sense. The Big 12 would have options, but the problem is, number one, would they be able to keep those 5 together? And number 2, would they be able to convince enough of those names that I just mentioned to stay relevant? Because remember, the Big 12, as of right now, is a Power 5 conference. Everything isn't set in, it isn't written down. We know it's going to happen. We know what's coming, but it's not done. In this point in time, right now, this very second, the Big 12 is a Power 5. So the question is, what would they need to do to stay a Power 5? The answer, you got to get good names. So with, all of their members being spread, if they can keep those 5, they're not going to pluck out of the other conferences. They're not going to be able to convince teams out of the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the ACC, or the SEC. So that's out of play. That's not happening. So what they would have to do is what I said. The biggest names out of the group of 5, bring them together. And then, if they were to be able to do that, would that be enough to keep the label of a Power 5? If they were able to keep those 5 together and get the biggest names out of the group of 5, yes, I think it's doable. But like SMU, no. Don't try to get SMU. Not a big enough name. Houston, big TV market, but no, they're not competitive enough, and they have a trashy head coach, Dana Holgorsen. Houston's never going to go anywhere under Dana Holgorsen. They do have a good basketball program right now. So, yeah, I would focus on UCF, Coastal Carolina, Liberty, let's see, Memphis, Cincinnati, definitely. You definitely have to take a shot with Cincinnati. Boise State, San Jose State, not a big name, but they are up and coming. I think that would be okay. Y'all shoot me some names. Who am I missing? I know I'm missing some names. Maybe Appalachian State. And don't even say Marshall. No, Marshall does not count as a big name in the group of 5. Sorry. Let's see. Zane says, if the Big 12 can keep the 8, well, they're not keeping... Oh, you mean 8 altogether. UCF, Memphis, and Cincinnati. Yeah, those were 3 that I mentioned. Marshall. No. UAB. No, UAB is a short-term success right now. I don't think that... I don't think UAB would be sustainable. Colorado State... No, I mean, I know the fact that they have the word Colorado, and it sounds like a big-time name, Colorado State, but really, Colorado State is a small school, and, I mean, that would be on the same level as Wyoming. I really don't think so. Sam Houston State, yeah, that's a really big stretch. No. Scott says Baylor is a little more religious. Yeah, Tulane, that's... You know, yes and no. I don't think they would have the sustainability, but they do have a good TV market. So I would kind of put Tulane in the same boat as Houston. Not quite there. Joey says Houston and Liberty. I agree with Liberty, but not Houston. There's just no future with Dana Holgorsen. I'm sorry. Let's see. North Dakota State has to be promoted to FBS first. They are a powerhouse in the FCS. I will give you that, but they're not a big enough name in a big enough school to sustain that. Tulsa, I mentioned them. I think Tulsa, if you combine them with the other names, doable. Jeremy says South Dakota. He also said North Dakota State produced 2 NFL starting quarterbacks. That is true, but we're looking at brand and sustainability. Would they be able to compete at the next... See, the thing with North Dakota State is they're not proven at the next level. They are very proven in the FCS. Very. Awesome. Amazing. But at the next level, they're not proven. That's why, I mean, I guess it could work, but I don't know. Yes, Will Ball, the Raging Cajuns, Louisiana. Yes, they are definitely on my list. Yeah, Appalachian State, they have brand credibility. It needs to be built up a little bit, but combined with others, it could work. Wichita State, in basketball, yes, in football, no. So I would say no to Wichita State. I'm trying to think if there's any other names that I'm missing that I'm just like, whoa, how did I miss that name? You know, Western Kentucky, nah, not really. Let's see. Y'all help me here. Buffalo is an interesting choice. They have a decent TV market. They are successful right now. I don't know if they're sustainable. Northern Illinois, if you would have asked me that maybe 3-4 years ago, I would have said yes, Northern Illinois would be in that conversation. But right now, they're not looking too good. So I would be on the fence with Northern Illinois. I would say prove it to me this year. If you can prove it to me this year, then it would be a yes. UNLV, the only thing that UNLV has going for them is their TV market. Other than that, they're not really good right now. So maybe it would benefit both sides. You know, UNLV getting into a better conference, they would recruit better, and then their TV market would help out with the Big 12. I could see that. I could see UNLV. That's not a bad suggestion right there. That's not bad at all. I also thought about Nevada. They've been okay for a while. Maybe they could. It's just the brand recognition is not all that strong. That's what I'm really trying to think of. Brand recognition, because that's what the Big 12. That's what they lost when they lost. When they lost Oklahoma and trash. Texas, same thing. They lost two big brands. So that's what you're trying to replace. Michael Vick, I agree. UNLV is trash. But what I'm saying is maybe the Big 12 and UNLV could benefit off each other. You know, them going into the Big 12 maybe could help their recruiting, and them having the Las Vegas TV market could help the Big 12. I don't know if that could work or not. Sorry. Knocked over my batteries. Let's see. Where do you think West Virginia could go if the Big 12... West Virginia's going to the ACC. I made a video about that today. They've been talking behind closed doors with the ACC for a while now. I'm expecting an announcement within the next 2 weeks, but I'm starting to hear we could hear an announcement within the next 48 hours. I'm not confident enough to say that's what I think, but that's what we're looking at. I'm confident in saying in the next 2 weeks, but next 48 hours, definitely possible. So to answer your question, West Virginia is going into the ACC, and that's where they need to be. I've always said it. It makes too much sense, and that's why I thought it wouldn't happen, because it makes too much sense. Jeffrey says, I'd like to see West Virginia in the Big Ten. Yes, but we're not an AAU accredited school, and honestly, I think we fit, number one, geography and culture-wise better in the ACC. And as far as that goes, I think the best fit overall would be the SEC, but I actually prefer the ACC because of built-in rivalries. We have Pitt, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Boston College, Miami, all those great rivalries. And, I live near Clemson, South Carolina, so whenever they get into the ACC, I'll be able to go to way more away games. Ever since West Virginia got into the Big 12, I haven't been able to go to one single away game. I don't have that much money. I'm not one of these boosters or one of these people that, can have money to spend like that so they can go on a 1,200-mile trip to watch a football game. I don't have it. I'll freely admit that. But they get into the ACC, right down the road is Clemson. I mean, I could walk to Clemson. It would take me an hour, but I could walk to it. You have Georgia Tech. That's an hour-and-a-half drive from here. Let's see. Raleigh, that's about 3 hours. That's NC State. Chapel Hill, that's about 3.5 hours from here. That's North Carolina. Wake Forest, that's what? Winston-Salem? That's 4.5 hours, I think. Duke, Durham, that's about 3.5 hours as well. I mean, really the only place that would be ridiculously ridiculous to travel to would be Miami and Boston College and Syracuse. I could drive to Virginia Tech, Pitt, of course, West Virginia home game. So yeah, I love West Virginia going to the ACC. Now, I do hope that they stick us in the Coastal, because that's where Pitt is and that's where Virginia Tech is. And I do think, and I'm sure you all agree with me because Clemson is not in the Coastal, that the Coastal is more winnable for West Virginia as well. And it's not even just me. Like, PSU Nitwit just proved this. People that have never thought of West Virginia in the ACC, now that the idea is coming back, they're like, man, I love the thought of that. Like, even if you're not a West Virginia fan, you've never been to a West Virginia game, maybe you've seen one on TV here and there, just in your head, it almost feels like West Virginia going back into the Big East. Not quite, but close. Close. So, yeah, West Virginia going into the ACC makes a ton of sense. And that's why it's happening. The question is who they're going to bring in. I cannot wait. West Virginia and Pitt have already renewed the Backyard Brawl. We will start that again next year. But the thing is, now we don't have to worry about, well, man, we got to soak this in like as much as possible, because after 4 years, it's probably going to be gone for another 20 years again, because we haven't played Pitt in over a decade. Dadgum. In football, we've played them a few times in basketball. I've only been to one Pitt game. That was in the 90s, I think. And it was pretty good. So I'm really looking forward to, West Virginia playing Pitt. And I'm actually going with one of my subscribers. His name is Talk is Pitt. And we have a bet. When West Virginia wins, he has to sing Country Roads, and I get to record him. If, by some miracle fluke play or fluke game, whatever, Pitt were to somehow, some way pull out a miracle and beat West Virginia, then I would have to wear a Pitt jersey for one video. He didn't say how long the video would have to be, so I could do like a 10-second. I mean, I'm not gonna do them like that, but I'm just saying he didn't tell me how long the video had to be. So I promise you, it's not gonna be one of my longer videos. That if that were to happen, it wouldn't be one of my longer videos. But I'm not worried about that anyways. It's not gonna happen. So I'm seeing people saying bring back the Big East. I like the nostalgia behind that. We all know it's never going to happen, but Big East football and Big East basketball was freaking amazing. I think it was one of the most underrated conferences there was. And it started happening whenever Miami and Virginia Tech left, then Pitt and Boston College and Syracuse and everybody left. So, Rutgers, which nobody cared about Rutgers, but there for a while, Rutgers was pretty decent under Greg Schiano, and he's back at Rutgers. He's trying to build something again. They recruited Bray Rice, 5-star running back. I don't know how they ended up with him, but bad person, good football player. Somebody asked me, a guy named Chris, nice name. Golden Blue Dude, when is Mark Rogers coming on? As far as on my show, tomorrow. One more day, guys. One more day. And we're gonna shoot for 9 p.m. So it's gonna be me and Mark Rogers here on Golden Blue Dude live. I think we're gonna go for 2 hours. Could go longer depending on how good the show goes. But I'm saying 2 hours, and we got some good stuff. And we actually had some things lined up, but because of what happened this week, you better believe we're going to be talking about this conference realignment. So I'm going to try to get his thoughts on all that and where he thinks everything's going to shake out. Personally, I think the Big 12's done. Thing of the past. Exactly like the Big East. Done. Sid says Miami was a beast back then. Yes, don't remind me. Of course. When Miami was in the Big East and West Virginia had to play him, they were a beast. But once they exited to the ACC, they turned into a team that we probably could have beat at least 50% of the time. Having said that, back in 2013, I believe, we did end up playing Miami in a bowl, and they spanked us 31-14. But I knew that was going to happen. I predicted it. We had a 10-win season, but I told everybody right then and there, I said, we need to fire Dana Holgorsen because the Big 12 was trash that year. And the 2 halfway decent teams that we did play, we got wrecked. We got demolished. And it was just horrific. And our quarterback was not good at all. So I knew we were going to get pasted by Miami. So we have 80 in the chat right now and only 30 likes. Am I boring you? Like, what's going on, guys? I mean, it's free. It's easy. Just hit the like button. It helps. And a lot of people don't understand what the like does. It hits that algorithm for YouTube. They'll actually suggest this video more. More people will come in, and more people, we'll have a bigger crowd. So we're trying to expand the crowd. There we go. People liking. I appreciate that. Michael says Don Nehlen was the best coach at West Virginia ever. Record-wise, yes. But if you want to go by legend status, technically it was Bobby Bowden. He didn't have the best record at West Virginia, and West Virginia fans ran him out of town way too soon. What happened? Goes to Florida State, builds a dynasty. And by the way, he does have a terminal disease. I'm not sure what it is, but Bobby Bowden, a true legend, is not going to be with us much longer. So, appreciate him while he's here because he is an all-time great. Florida State was a straight-up dump before Bobby Bowden. It was horrific over there. And he built it from the ground up. I believe he's 91 years old, so he's lived a good life. Bobby Bowden has lived a good life. He will always be a legend in my mind. And he's in the College Football Hall of Fame, so it doesn't matter whether you think he is or not. He is. And John Kelly says Don Nehlen should have won the national championship, the title, in 1988 against Notre Dame. You know what happened though, right? In the first quarter, Major Harris got injured in the very first freaking quarter. That's what people don't realize. West Virginia is a top 25 all-time winningest program in college football. The problem is every time an opportunity comes up for us to have a chance at a national championship, something stupid happens. Something absolutely stupid happens. 88, our first ever opportunity. We went undefeated. Major Harris, Heisman Trophy candidate. We get to the Fiesta Bowl. He gets an injury in the first quarter. We still played halfway decent, but I guarantee you, had he not gone down, we would have won the national championship. 93, we got to the Sugar Bowl. Had we beaten Florida, we would have gotten a share of the national championship. We went undefeated that year as well. What happened? In that game, West Virginia didn't show up. We got killed. I think it was 41-7, something like that. I mean, that was an embarrassment to watch. I stopped watching about the second quarter when they were up like 21. I think it was 21-7 or 24-7, something like that. It wasn't looking good. And then we all know this. 2007. I hate thinking about it, but it is what it is. 2007. First, we screwed up at South Florida. We shouldn't have lost that game, but we did. I thought it was over, but it wasn't. The curse of the number 2 kept knocking the number 2s off. What happened? Last game of the year, we happened to be number 2. And Pat White got injured, and we lost to Pitt. And you can ask anybody, not just West Virginia fans, anybody that knows anything about 2007, if West Virginia would have got to the national championship in 2007, I don't care if it's Ohio State, I don't care if it's LSU, we would have crushed them. We would have crushed them. Look at the Fiesta Bowl in 2007, okay? We crushed Oklahoma. Well, Oklahoma's not on the same caliber as Ohio State and LSU. Maybe, maybe not. But think about this. We were coming off a heartbreaking loss against Pitt. We had no business beating Oklahoma in that game. But we showed everybody, hey, we should have been in the national championship. We slipped up against Pitt. We had an injury. It shouldn't have happened. It did happen. But this is what our team is supposed to look like, not what you saw against Pitt. I mean, 13-9, West Virginia only scoring 9 points. Who saw that coming? That was straight up stupid. I mean, if somebody would have told me that we were going to lose to Pitt, I would have said at least scored 24 points, something like that. That's stupid. The dumbest thing I ever seen in my life. The play calls didn't make any sense. Pat White got injured. Dave Wannstedt looked like an idiot as usual on the sidelines of Pitt with that stupid mustache he had. Just unbelievable. Unbelievable. And even our fullback, Owen Schmidt, they've done interviews with him. They're like, every interview he said something to the effect of, it didn't feel right. The way we were playing and the play calls that were being called didn't feel right. He said it almost felt like we already knew that we were going to lose. If you go into a game thinking or knowing you're going to lose, guess what? You're going to lose. So, yeah. Man, I got myself thinking about that way too much. Dadgummit. Brent, Oklahoma was better than Ohio State that year. In my opinion, we would have whooped Ohio State. I agree with that. I wouldn't say they were necessarily better, but I definitely think they were maybe at the same level. Maybe at the same level, and we still whooped Oklahoma. 76 in the chat, 54 likes. We're getting close to how many people are in the chat section. Help me out, guys. Let's at least try to even that out. Let's try to get that number up to how many ever's in the like. And I lost a like because of that. I opened my mouth and I lost a like. Oh, well. Yeah, Pat McAfee missed 3 field goals. At least 2. At least 2. It might have been. Anthony, JCP, the big insiders are saying Iowa State to the Big Ten. Yeah, it's Iowa State and Kansas State. Or not Kansas State. Iowa State and Kansas. I think those two are headed for the Big Ten. I really do. 2 field goals. That's what I thought, Gregory. 2 field goals. Yeah, at least 2. I was thinking 3 was a little high, but, you know, as bad as that night went, it wouldn't have surprised me. Oh, pepperoni, how much I love you. That's a great screen name. Love it. What about Oklahoma State? That's, I don't know. You guys, I'm trying not to be a Debbie Downer, but Oklahoma State is out on an island right now. Honestly, I think Oklahoma State and Kansas State end up in the Mountain West. I really do. Um, and I hate it for you guys. Y'all have had West Virginia's number. You really have. I have to admit that. Oklahoma State has had West Virginia's number. And for Oklahoma and Kansas State had West Virginia's number there for a while as well. Whenever we first got into the Big 12, I think they won 5 straight. I think, and now we've won 4 straight, or it might be the other way around. They won 4 straight, we won 5 straight. Anyways, there for a while we could not beat Kansas State to save our lives, and Oklahoma State has been a rare win whenever we could find it. So, whenever I think about Oklahoma State and Kansas State being out on an island and maybe having to choose the Mountain West, that's not right. And I really do. I'm one of these fans, even though I want my team to beat y'all, like beat your brains in, and you're our enemies on game day. Whenever it's not game day, like, I feel empathy for you guys. Like, I wouldn't want to be a fan of a fan base that feels like, they're left out on an island. They might end up in a group of 5 conference. That's a terrible feeling. West Virginia had that feeling for a little while whenever the Big East was going under, and, we didn't think we were going to grab a spot, and we fortunately ended up in the Big 12. So for that to happen to Oklahoma State and Kansas State, I'm really hoping that I'm wrong, guys. I'm not giving that prediction with happiness and joy and delight and haha, you guys suck. No, not at all. Actually, with quite a bit of dismay, because y'all's programs are better than that. When you think about Oklahoma, even in down years, when you think about Oklahoma State and Kansas State, you don't think of a group of 5 team. I can't really connect that, but it looks like that could really be on the table. Group of 5 for Kansas State and Oklahoma State could really, truly be on the table. It's not good. It's not good. Let's see. Brent says, you think West Virginia will be a top 5 school in football in the ACC if we go? Yes. I really, really do. Honestly, in the Big 12, I think we were on our way to being a top 3 team. I think this year we would have had I think we're still going to play the Big 12 schedule. I don't know the deal with Texas and Oklahoma. I'm guessing they're playing the same schedule. So I'll say it in present tense, like it's still happening. I think West Virginia has a really good shot of getting that 3rd spot. Personally, I think we finished 4th in the Big 12. We have a top 25 recruiting class right now. So, yeah, I think West Virginia would have enough talent and enough recruiting, especially with Neil Brown bringing the recruiting back at a high level. I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. People have gotten used to the Dana Holgorsen era, West Virginia. That's not West Virginia football. Recruiting in the 40s, that is not West Virginia football. Going long stretches of, not being able to win 10 games in 1 year. That's not West Virginia football. So, we got to be able to flush that out of our brains and realize that what Neil Brown is getting us up to, that's actually where we should have been all along. We regressed so much under Dana Holgorsen. If you so happen to have a West Virginia friend, talk to him about it. Get the scoop. He'll tell you this is not normal at all. What you've seen from West Virginia, not normal at all. Gregory says Dana Holgorsen better than Bill Stewart. You are nuts or on drugs, sir. Absolutely not. Honestly, I know it was a short stint, but did you know that Bill Stewart is the winningest as far as percentage goes? Football coach at West Virginia, the winningest. I don't think he won any less than 9 wins. I might be wrong. He might have had 1 8-win season, but I'm pretty sure that under Bill Stewart, West Virginia had no less than 9 wins in a season. Could be wrong, maybe. But we definitely didn't have a losing season. We did not ever have a losing season. And I can't pronounce your name, but the dude that starts with the MGTNQUASR, Holgorsen was the worst decision ever made. That is actually the correct answer. That's not an opinion. That is the correct answer. And Jacob is agreeing. Worst coach in West Virginia history. Yes, correct answer. Set us back a full decade. Whenever we hired Dana Holgorsen, all we did was we stopped in time and maybe even went backwards. We did not progress at all. That was horrific. I get the mindset why they hired Dana Holgorsen, but the reason West Virginia hired Dana Holgorsen is because we were going into the Big 12, and Dana Holgorsen was a Big 12 person, and they thought, it would ease us into the Big 12, and maybe we would have a better chance of winning in the Big 12 because Dana Holgorsen knows the Big 12. Well, it was completely the opposite. The dude is a lunatic. He knows his X's and O's on offense, but defense didn't exist under him. And honestly, it looked like he was punishing the defense because his up-tempo was so fast, we would score in 2 minutes or a 3-and-out in 20 seconds. So think about that. The defense is getting no rest under that. No rest. So that's probably why recruiting was so bad at West Virginia. I just now thought about that, especially on defense. You don't want to go play for a guy where, you're getting 2-minute rests, whether they score or not. Makes no sense. And that's why we either scored 100 points or we scored no points, because it was feast or famine. Whenever we weren't clicking, we got blown out. It was ridiculous. Jeff says, would love to see Clemson and West Virginia play again. Yes. The reason you would like to see Clemson and West Virginia play again is because West Virginia blew out Clemson in 2011, 70-33, and you and I both know if they were to play Morgantown or Clemson right now, today, Clemson would blow out West Virginia 70-33. So I agree with you. Even though I knew we would get blown out, I can understand your rationale. Sam says West Virginia versus the Vols would be a great matchup, except it did happen in 2018 and we blew them out, so probably not. Pizza Woman in the house, thanks for stopping by. 27 Sports says Baylor and TCU to the Pac-12 maybe. Well, the problem with that is the stupid restrictions that the Pac-12 has, especially TCU. They have a double whammy. Big 12 doesn't, I don't know if it's an actual rule or if it's frowned upon, but they don't let religious schools, so that's strike one, or, whatever you want to call it for TCU. And then the other thing is they're not a tier 1 research facility. Now for Baylor, I think they're a religious institute too, if I'm not mistaken. So both of those would have two things going against them. So I definitely don't think they'll get into the Pac-12. Honestly, for TCU and Baylor, their best hope is they need to hope that the SEC is feeling especially generous and extends their arm to them, because I think that's really the only place that they can go. I don't think they're an AAU school, so they couldn't go to the Big Ten. Not a Tier 1 research school, both religious, I believe, so they can't go to the Pac-12. Maybe the ACC. I didn't think about that. I mean, that would be way out there. You'd have a big gap, but, I mean, the Big 12 did it. What's up, Colby? Thanks for stopping by. You know what? They could go to the ACC. That's a stretch. But for Baylor and TCU, really the only two options is the SEC and the ACC. I think the SEC would make way more sense, but they could technically get to the ACC. It'd be kind of weird, like West Virginia was in the Big 12. That'd be kind of like turnabout. Turnabout is fair play. West Virginia being in the Big 12, TCU and Baylor being in the ACC. It's not a bad idea. Kevin Dog is in the house. Sorry, Tiger. I'm not accepting calls. And you called the wrong number. Thank you, Sandra, for the sub. I do apologize, Tiger. Tonight I'm not accepting live calls because of what happened with the trolls. But I don't know if you caught it earlier in the show. I guess you just now joined. Yeah, you had to help Pete. My bad. So basically, the way we're doing a live call-in show from now on is, and I need Joey to put up my email again because we're going to try to set up a list. That way, that stupidness that happened last night doesn't happen again. So, just for rules' sake, Tiger, send me your name and the phone number you're going to be calling from, and I'll put you on the list. I'll put you at 1, and then we'll go from there. That way, because I'm creating a list for the call-in. I hate doing that. I know. I want it to be, you can just call in whenever you want. But until I get a soundboard and I can screen these calls better, last night, I had trolls just constantly, cussing and saying words they shouldn't be saying and being racist. It was ridiculous. I don't know why they do it, but that's what they do. So there's the email right there. Anybody in the chat right now, send me an email. Just say who you are and write down the number that you'll be calling, because I'm using a phone to mic method, so your number will pop up, so I'll know it's you. It'll match your name, and we'll create a list, and you'll know when you're going to be pop up, because if you send me an email, I'll tell you what number you are. So say you send me an email and you were number 2, I will send back, hey, you'll be the second caller. So you'll know what order you are. Send me an email. That's the email, refsuck@gmail.com. Tell me your name, the phone number you're going to be calling from, and I'll put you down, and then I'll respond to you what number you will be in line. That's how we'll have to do this until I can invest in the soundboard and screen these calls. So we're not going to do that with tomorrow's show because it's going to be Mark Rogers, so it's going to be me and him. But I'm going back to my normal schedule, Wednesdays and Saturdays. There's a reason why I picked those two days, guys, all right? Wednesdays, Uncle Lou doesn't have his. I don't think Pete has his. I'm not sure. But I'm not trying to compete with them. This is a community, and I'm not trying to take views away from them. The reason I did it every day this week is to build up to the live show with Mark Rogers tomorrow. That's going to be the big one. And it's going to be starting at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you're gonna want to stop by because me and him have pretty good chemistry. Some people don't like me. Some people don't like Mark. But I'm telling you, us together is going to make a good show. Okay? I promise. We have good chemistry. Same with me and Lou. Some people don't like me, and some people don't like Lou. But when we do a show together, it is a killer show. We do really good. And I don't know if Uncle Lou's still here, but I do appreciate you letting me be on your morning show. Means a lot to me. I appreciate it. And I have a good time with you, sir. Don K says, I hope the Big 12 call backed off on cracking down on the horns down gesture. Yeah. Oh, Kevin just saw my bottle. Yeah, I think it was Jim that sent me my 1980 Georgia bottle. I also have a 2018 Clemson National Championship bottle. So, yeah. I have a Georgia National Championship. Y'all are looking at it. I know you want to see it. Hold on. I think that's the one that Jim sent me, if I'm not mistaken. So it's got the Georgia, and then this other one is just itty bitty. But that's the Clemson one from 2018. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've been telling people, send me stuff to my P.O. box, and I will display it. And I have one more thing that I haven't figured out how to display yet, but I will. And this was from Scott. This was, he's a Baylor fan, so there you go. the RG3 Heisman Trophy newspaper clipping, and I promise, bud, I am going to put that up. I just got to figure it out. And I was waiting on my colored sound pads because I'm doing the blue and gold behind me, and Wish sent me the wrong freaking colors, so I'm mad about that. The yellow I could have worked with, but the blue, hold on. I can't work with this. This is not Mountaineer blue. This is Carolina blue. I cannot work with that. So yeah, I'm pissed at Wish right now. They did not, and there was two different things, dark blue and then the light blue. And I clicked the dark blue, and on the receipt it says dark blue. So yeah, they just got it wrong. The problem is, if I tell them and either get a refund, or I guess I could do the refund, but if I try to get them to send another one, it's going to take another 2 months. So, I might try spray painting. Somebody said spray painting. It might eat through. It might crack. I don't know. But it's better than just letting them sit here. So, yeah, I'm going to try the spray paint method. Let's see. John says, and they didn't call pass interference at the Texas game last year in Austin. We was mugged in the end zone. Man, with that's what I'm talking about. When West Virginia got into the Big 12, I didn't realize how bad the calls were. It's not just us not getting the calls. It's the other team is allowed to do everything. Everything. So, getting mugged is part of the game now, being in the Big 12. So, yeah. Yeah, you can go ahead and promote yourself, Tiger. Tiger Baskins has his own channel. Y'all go check him out. He's awesome. He helps a lot of underprivileged guys get on their feet. Make football teams, get their diploma, or diploma, get into college. Even be sort of like an agent to them without getting paid. So he's a great dude. Go check him out. See, John, yeah, usually when we play OU in Texas, we get mugged. We get slaughtered. It's horrific. Like, there was this one penalty. It wasn't this past year. I think it was the year before last, where the dude literally pulled his helmet off. It was Will Greer, I think. It was either Will Greer or David Stills. I can't 100% remember. But anyways, I can't remember who we were playing, but the dude ripped his entire helmet off by the face mask, and no penalty was called. Like, what do you have to do to get a penalty called for a face mask? I mean, it was ridiculous. But that's the sort of thing that I think maybe Oklahoma and Texas might end up having to put up with now, since they're in the SEC. They're used to, like I said in the video that I put out today, they're used to being the top dogs in a smaller pond. Now they're still upper tier, I would say, but this is a lake now. This is not even a pond anymore. I'm not even going to call it a bigger pond. Hold on. So, we got some company over for my kids, and they were getting a little excited. Clint Trickett, that's who it was. My bad. Tiger Basson says, also, Golden Blue Dude, I will drive to West Virginia right now if you don't give me that blue. I'm going to, man. I'm going to. I got busy. Hold on. I don't know if I can do it now or before. Oh, there we go. I got you immediately. You got it, man. Right now. The reach is yours. Let's see. Oh, Kevin says DeAndre Swift got face masked in the national championship with no call. Yeah. See? Big boy pants, pull them up. Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but whenever you're getting your face mask ripped off and stuff like that, that's giving the other team just an open call that they can do whatever they want. So I understand, toughness and all that stuff, but there's a point in time where you have to call the flag. That has nothing to do with toughness and, putting on your big boy pants. I mean, in order to play football itself, you got to wear your big boy pants. That's a tough sport. But you can't have people out there, ripping helmets off and trying to hurt people on purpose. Can't do that. That's not how it works. Oh, wrong. Sorry. He would. Hold on. Let me see what I. He said wrong part of the conversation. I think it was Hold on. Okay. Well, anyway, sorry, I misunderstood that, but it's still the point though. You can't let that stuff happen. Zach says there was a horrible holding call during the Oklahoma game in 2018. I remember that. Holding's a different story. You know, that's going to happen all the time. But something egregious where they're going out of their way to rip somebody's helmet off or hitting somebody blindsided and, you know, stuff like that. It sucks that the holding thing doesn't get called consistently, but it is what it is. But, yeah. Guys, I would love to stay and hang out with y'all all night long. I really would. And there's a lot of people in here. This is the biggest audience I ever had so far. But unfortunately, I do have a long day tomorrow. And I'm going to put out my video that I put out every day. If you're not subscribed already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Golden Blue Dude does videos every day. I do not take a day off. I don't do live shows every day. Not a live show. But I do a regular video every day. But tomorrow night is the big night. Mark Rogers, 9 p.m. It's going to be a good one. We're going to talk about what happened this week. We're going to do some rankings. We're going to do some predictions. It's going to be a great show, and we're going to bring it. And you guys will be involved too, because we will bounce some stuff off the chat. So I hope y'all enjoy it. I appreciate the love y'all gave me. 70 likes, that's amazing. I appreciate it. Y'all are an amazing audience. I hope I didn't bore you too much. And come back and see me tomorrow evening. Y'all have a good night and have a good weekend, and I'll see y'all tomorrow night.